This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. I'm your host, Dan Zehr, delighted to talk Star Wars with you. Since May 2013, I've been committed to creating a positive, family-friendly, spoiler-free place for our Star Wars community. Imagine walking into your favorite coffee shop and joining a lively discussion about Star Wars films, Disney Plus live action, animation, books, comics, collectibles, or Star Wars experiences at the Disney theme parks and the cruise line. I want to bring that sense of community to this podcast, my website, special events, live video experiences, email newsletter, and more. Join our Star Wars community at coffeewithkenobi.com and be part of something special. Thank you to the official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. Check out coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefan-travel for a no-cost, no-obligation quote. And if you're interested in joining us on the Disney Wish, June 16th to the 20th of summer 2025, go to coffeewithkenobi.com/DisneyWish for your no-cost, no-obligation quote. There'll be a lot of amazing opportunities to hang out with me and members of the Star Wars community on an incredible cruise ship, all with the incredible assistance of the amazing travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. On today's show, more from the CWK Pour-Over Vault. This is your opportunity to see what it's like to be a member of the CWK Alliance, get access to CWK Pour-Over. I'm going to go through and pull some of my favorites and some of the most popular ones that have been listened to on Coffee with Kenobi's Patreon page, and you get to hear them in the month of August completely for free. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee, tea, or me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's Coffee with Kenobi.
You over there with the Alliance hat on. This is CWK Pour-Over. And I'm Tom. And welcome, everybody. How'd you like that intro, eh? Hey, you know what? Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And I see Cory and I have got the old Alliance hats on. So welcome, Cory. I'm just going to introduce you now. My co-host, Cory Clubb with the Alliance hat. How you doing tonight, Cory?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thanks for introducing me first. I'm so glad I feel pumped right now. I'm so excited. Man, this cat couldn't get any better than this. I mean, it's just like you live and breathe for it. It's just fantastic. And I'm so glad I wore this. It feels so good on my head. It's nice. It's complete. I feel like a member. I'm part of something. I feel just a movement, if you will.
Oh, yes.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yes. And while Dan didn't get the memo, he's always prepared. He is the man on the moment. CWK Cafe sweatshirt, CWK Alliance hats. Welcome, Dan Z.
Well, thank you. I was starting to worry I was going to get kicked out of the Alliance. Is that even possible? I don't think so.
Yeah,
maybe it is. Cut the cord. Yeah, I just wanted you to know how much I must love you guys and everybody in the Alliance, because I've not adjusted this headset to reflect wearing a cap. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to lose all blood to my brain any second now with the pressure being exerted. But it's great to be here.
Yes, okay. When you start talking like you're on helium, we will. Dan, time to take the hat off.
If you just see my toes floating in the air.
Loosen the hat, sir. Loosen the hat. Oh my goodness. Well, it's so good it's so good to see you two, and it's so good to have all of you joining us tonight. We have another top 5 for you.
Top.
$5.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This was a tough one. I had to do a lot of listening on this one because our list tonight is the top 5 musical compositions from the original Star Wars trilogy, of course, all written and directed by John Williams. And so
can you name those 3 albums for us? I can't remember them.
A Walk on the Moon.
4, 5, and 6.
A Spit in the Stars. And
Graceland.
I don't know. A Galaxy of One.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll have to Google it.
Let me ask you this.
All right.
Let me ask you this. speaking of John Williams, when we were talking this a little before the show, John Williams and Star Wars are like peanut butter and jelly, right? I mean, it just seems like it goes together so well, and it was like, what happened back in that day long ago when this was put together? George Lucas obviously had to have music for the film. How do you find this John Williams guy? Was it just we'll just get some music written and he'll do it? But this, I mean, you think about this. This is what built Star Wars. It's like Legos. You're building a masterpiece, or you're painting a masterpiece, or you're drawing something. But John Williams is, you can't just say Star Wars and not think of these songs or these titles. And I wonder still if when the first album came out, it was not titled A New Hope. It was just Star Wars.
That's correct, because that didn't happen until 1981.
Right. So then was the album that came out, which I don't even know if the album came out sequentially after.
Oh, it came out
film.
Instantly. It was a massive Billboard bestseller. John Williams, George Lucas is often referred to John Williams as the oxygen of Star Wars and the music, and then Steven Spielberg recommended him because they'd worked together on Jaws and another film too that is just suddenly escaping me for some reason. But yeah. Duel, in fact. So yeah, that's pretty.
So when you guys were going through these 3 albums, New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi,
that's them.
What were some of the? Oh,
that's it.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That just fell out. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, so what are some of the things you were thinking of when choosing this list? What did you have criteria, or what were you thinking? Cory, you look like your thinking cap is on.
It totally is on, and I have it on. I've had it on the entire time.
That was me not having a thinking cap on. That's why I was picking my nose. Squirrel.
Okay, gotcha. These were hard to pick because these movies in general are so iconic. The scores are so iconic that it's almost like you can pick any of these, really, honestly, to some degree, and get pieces of others. These to me were moments of Star Wars. Like I could think of moments from the films and think, oh, I like this part of the movie because of the music. Right. So yeah. I mean, a lot of people have like, oh, I like this battle scene, or like this, romantic scene, or I like this, intense scene, for some other reasons. But I picked this kind of on the guise of like because of the music, because of what's happening with the sound. And what's happening on the screen. So for me, it's a lot of my stories will kind of come from that kind of perspective. And how that, whenever I watch these scenes and watch these movies, that's what I feel. This music kind of, rises up it treats us to kind of heighten the movie in itself. So again, like you said, these are capstones to, the film industry and really music in general.
Okay. Dan, how about you?
I'd never heard of any of these music songs before, so I listened to them. Really impressive. I think that Williams has a future. Yeah.
He's got a real future.
I feel like, similar to Cory, I thought about certain scenes and sequences that evoke a certain level of emotion within me, and a lot of that is driven by the music. I know when we saw The Empire Strikes Back at a drive-in recently, the three of us and our families, I remember noticing remarkably how impactful, how integral the music is, particularly to that film. But then I also thought about tracks that I liked playing for Mason, or the ones that I listen to the most frequently on Spotify, or just the songs that I found myself humming. I'll never forget when Empire came out. I saw it in the theater one time, and we were driving around, and I heard a radio advertisement for The Empire Strikes Back, and they played the Imperial March. And I couldn't tell you, oh, that's the Imperial March. I just knew it was from the new Star Wars movie, and I remember thinking, that song is so cool. I love that song. It reminds me of Star Wars. And it just kind of built from there into this list. And I got to say, of all the top fives I've done, both here, the regular show, and on Facebook Live, this is by far the cruelest, toughest one I've ever done. It was
really
very difficult. Yes.
Wow. There were a couple songs that were pretty gimmies for me that I was like, oh, that's no doubt going to be on my top five. And those dropped in very nicely. It was the other three that I really struggled with. Because I would go to, so I had it down, and then I was like, I'm gonna go back and like re-listen to the openings of like all the songs on all the albums, as many as I could get. And I was like, wait, no, because Cory, we were talking before recording that, a lot of these songs have reprisal. Is that the word? A reprisal of a song that's shows up someplace else. And it's like, oh, but I like the way that song is just, portrayed here in the context of this song. So that's where it really, you can really get yourself down into the weeds on this.
Yeah.
So for my criteria, I went very much with, can I close my eyes and see what's happening in the movie? That was one part. Now, not all these songs I've chosen have that, but that's a big one for a couple of them. And then the other were, when I hear it, does it, as you said, Dan, does it stir up an emotional feeling inside of me and give me a picture? There's one song in here that I'll talk about that gives me a picture, but it's not a picture from any of the movies. It's just a picture of of Star Wars that my own mind made up. And
sure.
So,
well, that's neat.
I don't know. So that's kind of how I came up with mine. But yeah, I like the way you put that. It's cruel. This was a cruel little trick we did to ourselves.
I'm thinking about leaving the show. That's how serious this is.
Okay.
Don't do it.
Well, all right. Then we don't have to bicker. We don't have to bicker over who goes first and whatnot if that happens. But so let's do this. So you don't leave, Dan. Let's start with you at number 5, then Cory, and then me, and then we'll wrap back around. So
okay,
Dan, your number 5
and for the record,
original trilogy composition.
For the record, you're stuck with me. So
a little long haul.
My number 5.
I let you go first.
That's right. That's the only reason. My number 5 is a legendary song that when I had the soundtracks, of course, for all of them. I had the vinyls for all of them. I still have the original vinyls. In fact, I just listened to all of them over the past week. But this is the one that I would lift up the record needle and I would put it to and make sure it went right over this one all the time. Mm-hmm. I don't even need to explain the song because you're about to understand it. I would put the needle down and I would get on the top of my bed and stand on the edge, and all of a sudden, bump. I'd stand up there. I'd imaginarily salute to R2-D2. And I would jump off my bed, catch the lightsaber in my hand. This song is called Return of the Jedi. It's from Return of the Jedi. It's the epic sequence where Luke first reveals that he has got this. He ignites a green lightsaber for the first time. All heck breaks loose. Oh, I've seriously goosebumps aplenty talking about this. Now, and what's so neat is I explained it to Mason once, and then for a week, he would do the same thing. He'd go into his bed or like the footrest in the couch, and we put on this song, and he'd just act out Luke's thing. And of course, I went from being Luke as a kid. Now suddenly I'm R2-D2, and I'm tossing him the lightsaber. Is that what parenting is about?
That's how it goes.
It's a wonderful movie, a wonderful song. It's actually called The Return of the Jedi, and it's solid gold. That's my number 5.
Excellent. I love it. Great memory. So that's not now. A couple weeks ago when we did our top 10 albums, Empire was my number 3 top album of all time, and I shared with you my Nerf basketball story.
Yes.
So that's right up there, except that it remains more in context of what you're listening to, whereas mine was just completely whatever. But yeah, I love that. I love the playing out of, I just wonder if kids today, I wonder if do they still do that? Like, do they replay like scenes from movies and attach it to, even with action figures or something? I wonder. I wonder if kids. I can't say I've ever seen my girls do that, but I'm girls and I don't have boys, and so I don't know. And I'm not trying to discriminate there, but I'm just, is that just something to like play out that? And I don't know. Anyway, so enough of my soapbox. Cory, how about your number 5?
I thought about this list and I was putting this together, and I thought there's got to be ways that we're going to be crossing over each other. We're going to be picking same ones because again, the original trilogy is so in the zeitgeist of somebody's humming the tune down the street. You're going, I know that song. I know that. It's just like it's something that everybody knows. Even if you're not even a Star Wars fan, you kind of know the rhythm, you kind of know the idea, and it's so iconic. So my number 5 is the same one as Dan's. The Return of the Jedi and Return of the Jedi. And exactly for the same reason, because
that's cool.
That moment, I mean, what we know so far in this film is Jabba the Hutt is captured Han Solo. Also, he's captured Princess Leia. He's also captured Luke Skywalker, the big three. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. His next step is death. And, we're tense. And like you said, that bum. And he's literally sitting on the edge of this platform, and you're like, I don't see a way out of this, And the music cues up again. That's where the music comes in perfectly. And Williams is just a master at what he does, because there's a few bumps, and then we get the flip and the catch and the rise of the da 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 da. It's just, and then we're like, actually sitting in. I never sat in a movie theater and saw this, but like. This is it. This is a moment, such a heroic moment. I'm getting goosebumps as well. Such a heroic moment in all the franchise, leading into the original trilogy up to this point. You didn't go to movies, or watch them on the screen at home, months after one another. This is talking years. You're back into the Star Wars zeitgeist. You're back into the Jedi. What's happening? The end of Empire. There's such a solid move from sad somberness of the Empire coming into Return of the Jedi. You have this great, wonderful, heroic moment, and Luke igniting the green lightsaber. And it was like everything's changed right now. Boom, right this moment. And the music takes us there. So it is a great theme. And I can't even recall really the rest of that song. It's just a really, adventurous theme, but it's just that first bump, and it's just it's so simplistic, but that's the genius of John Williams doing his thing and knowing exactly how to create a moment.
Next time you come over, we'll jump off the bed and you can listen to
you could throw me the lightsaber. How about that?
Yes, that seems fair.
Actually, I could just kneel on the floor and throw both of you a lightsaber as you jump off the bed at the same time.
We'll run into each other and start fighting.
That's good.
Oh man, come on.
We just won't act out the Han and Leia scenes.
No.
Yeah, let's not. Okay.
Han and Chewie scene.
Yeah, Han and Chewie.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, my number 5 couldn't be any different than yours. I don't know that mine is a goosebumps moment, but this song takes me way back to now. Dan, you and I come from a different era, where my dad used to take me to the little tavern, the inn, the Tap. It was called Oswego Tap downtown in the town that I lived in when I was a kid. I was 6, 7 years old. My dad would take me down there on a Thursday night. And, he'd have a drink with his friends, and I'd have a Coke, and I'd watch whatever was on the TV and that kind of thing. And there was just sort of an aura to that moment. When you walk in, there was an atmosphere. And there, it was just like, it was the same kind of conversation. It was the same kind of environment. And so this next song, it took us someplace new. It gave us something new. It gave us a little fun, a little weird. I mean, it's the music playing in the cantina of Mos Eisley, and it's the Cantina Band, arguably one of the weirdly most recognizable tunes from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you guys, that song, there can be little bits. I can even hear just 2 notes from anything else that make that do 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 do, and that song kick off in my head, and I'll have it for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so there's 2 things that I love about this song and why it's my number 5. Number 1 is it reminds me of like that environment that you have when you go to a tavern. Obi-Wan Kenobi says, we're at your place of scum and villainy, or a hive of scum and villainy, or whatever the exact line is. And so you get that when you walk in there. But then the second reason is what I mentioned and that is just a recognizable tune that stays with you. Just about anybody, even non-Star Wars fans, know that is a Star Wars song. And so that's why it lands on my number 5.
I mean, I don't think anybody would ever argue with that. It's pretty great. Yeah.
Now it's on all our heads. That's all it is.
Yep, it is. So, all right. Moving on. Dan, you're number 4.
My number 4 is from The Empire Strikes Back. I tried to make sure I had at least one from each. But this song is called Lando's Palace. It is the very gentle, sort of optimistic and playful medley when Han and Lando and Chewie and Leia are walking through the halls of Cloud City, and Han's like, "Wow, you look at you, you're a respected businessman, and I've just made a deal that's going to keep the Empire out of here forever." And all of a sudden that music stops, and all of a sudden we get the Vader theme, and what's going to happen. That Han Solo's blaster goes flying across the table. We'd be honored if you would join us. But the overall arching thing is that's playful Bespin theme, which I think starts with Luke leaving Dagobah. So you get a little bit of that too. But at the heart of it is that beautiful chorus. And Cory, you may not remember this, but when we used to do the news, when Coffee with Kenobi first started, that was the music that played in the background when we were discussing the news. And I always really liked that we included that bit. So it's called Lando's Palace.
Very good.
Cool.
Number 4 for me. This next one, this is to me one of the most heroic songs I've ever heard. And just if it's a triumphant blast that really just puts you in good spirits. This is the throne room song from A New Hope. And if you remember it cuts from the kind of celebrating getting back from the battle, cuts like a swipe over, and it's everyone's kind of dressed up, and they're walking into the processional of getting the medals, and there's these horns, it's just like this heroic moment of we've won, we've beat the odds, these heroes have come forward, and it's just this great ending to an iconic film. It's so great. But the one thing about this is there's no dialogue. Well, I guess there's a little beeping and bopping, but there's no dialogue, and it's all music. But we're watching on screen. There doesn't need to be any dialogue. We all know what just happened, and I think it's the great part of John Williams saying to us, like, or even George Lucas thinking, like, I don't need dialogue here. All I need was music. I want something that's going to be triumphant. I want something that's going to be, your hero's return, being Han Solo, and it's so interesting because sometimes you necessarily don't think about that when you think of Star Wars. But I remember whenever that scene swipes over and that music plays up, it's like, this is awesome. It feels so good. And I've thought it'd be cool to have something like that to enter, or leave a processional of some sort, like a wedding or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's to me, it's just very heroic. And then the dialogue, just letting music shine out, is a great spot, and that's my number 4 pick.
That's cool. What I always think about at the opening of that song, or the part where you talk about the horns, I always think about the timpani. I love that, and I love your assessment of the dialogue, because my first thought is when you said that is, and it works. From a kid to now as an adult. That whole I mean, it's, what is it, 4 or 5 minutes of just them marching down and forgiving them, and all the looks and the smiles and the winks and the twerp, the R2D2 bouncing back and forth. It all works, and you know exactly what's happening. That's great. I love that. That is so cool. All right, my number 4. I was just thinking. So I'm now looking at my list, thinking, boy. Most of mine, except for a Cantina Band, most of mine are very similar, I think. I don't know, maybe not. Anyway, mine is one of the very first songs we heard after the main title in 1977, and mine is from A New Hope, Imperial Attack.
Oh, fun.
It's when they storm into the Tantive 4, and I wrote down as I was listening, I said, there's so many big and heavy chords that just happen, is boom, boom in the musical, or in the musicality of it. And this is all when you're meeting the stormtroopers, and then it's the Empire and Darth Vader, and you have all these like wild chaotic kind of strings going all up and down and up and down, and then it kind of pulls back, and you get a hint of Leia's theme, which I'm guessing I haven't put my most recent listening to it to the film, but I'm guessing that's probably when she's pulling R2 aside and putting the
That's
plans
correct.
But then it gets right back to the heavy chords and the Imperial, as it's titled, Imperial Attack. I just love that as an introduction. It grabbed me as a 7-year-old and said, "Pay attention!" And today, even I listen to that, and that just it really resonates with me, and it gives me a sense of the power of the Empire. It's not my top Imperial song, but it is right up there.
Yeah.
I love that choice. I love that choice. That speaks Star Wars to me more than just about anything, really.
Wow.
That sequence.
Spoilers.
Maybe.
All right.
Cool. Maybe.
All right.
3.
Number 3. Number 3 for me is also from The Empire Strikes Back. It is the asteroid field. It's an incredibly swashbuckling, sweeping, thrilling sequence where the music is completely adding to the tension of him swooping in and out of these space rocks, and the Empire is chasing them, and Han is nervous and they can't get to light speed. You're not actually going into an asteroid field, are you? C-3PO tells us the odds, but it's one of those tracks from The Empire Strikes Back that when it comes on, you stop what you're doing and you listen. I really like listening to this song when I'm driving through a snowstorm, because it kind of feels, it's got that same heightened sense. I put it on many times I've driven in snow because it kind of feels like, dun, 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 you're cruising through. It's so wonderful.
Oh, top the odds. Oh.
Yeah. My wife's like, pull over. I said, don't tell me the odds. No, I wouldn't do that. Nah, just kidding. But yeah, it's fantastic.
Love that choice.
My number 3, is another crossover, and this knew was going to happen. It's funny to hear. I feel like I'm playing catch up, but number 3 for me is the Cantina Band from A New Hope.
Oh.
And my thoughts on this again is it's funny because it's so iconic between some of the other ones I'm sure we'll mention, but this again ranks so high up there that you can hum a little bit of tune and you're tapping your foot along with it. And I tend to hear this a lot, like conventions, or even if it's a comic book convention, you'll hear somebody's playing it or something, and it's just like it just kind of gets in the mood. But what's interesting about this, and Tom, you kind of alluded to this too. We go from such a heavy dramatic piece of music and kind of this dramatization going along, and he talks about the Cantina Mos Eisley being just a vile place, but the idea to switch up the music not being part of the film but being part of the actual action that's happening was pretty interesting. Like, that wasn't thought like, oh, we'll just put some music in here that's kind of peppy, get things going. But this is music coming from the actual film. This is, the band playing music. And this, I want to say this doesn't happen necessarily all that often necessarily with other movies that you walk into a bar scene and maybe I haven't analyzed it that much, but it's just a great transition. Again, look at the masterstroke that John Williams and George Lucas kind of put together, and the fact that like we're going to go from telling the story of a farm boy trying to figure out what's going on to this completely different. This is where we get to see the most aliens. That's the other thing too. It's like it's such a catalog of different creatures and beings, and it just puts you in a context of you feel like you're there. And some of these other things are obviously it's a giant sci-fi film, but this is where you can step into the film and go, yeah, I could see myself sitting around here.
That's
and
cool.
That. So again, just the genius of John Williams at large here. And again, it's just I like listening to the song. It can get kind of monotonous a little bit and kind of like okay, but again, it's just a fun one to throw on if you're having a Star Wars party at home or you're having just some fun, and it's just so catchy for that reason. But again, top pick. This could have easily been maybe number 1 for me.
Wow.
Because it's really interesting that way. So there you go.
There's a great DJ version of it that they play at Galaxy's Edge in the cantina there at Oga's Cantina.
Yes.
It's on my Spotify list. It's awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, nice. I noticed that DJ is not playing like, the Return of the Jedi, and Dan jumping off the bar and trying to get the light there.
Well, my connections are getting better all the time, so maybe someday.
Oh, okay. All right. So my number 3. When I started this list, I thought this was going to be my number 1, but it dropped. So it is the snare drum, the low strings and a staccato beat. Bum, bum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da. You know it. It is the Imperial March. Oh my gosh. I thought for sure this would be my number 1, but it's invaded society as much it has any other Star Wars song, even the Cantina song. You go to a college football game, and when your team is on defense, the home band is playing the Imperial March.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. People know it. But the brass blasts out the notes to imply a military threat is here. And we also hum this one around the house when someone's mad, or whatever. You get the idea. Anyway, but I always think about this this song as the entrance of one of the most fearsome and visually imposing characters of all time, obviously Darth Vader. But what I love about this one is I don't only think of Darth Vader, because as the song continues, it grows and it grows and it grows, and there's even a part where you can hear like the bells playing the song, and it's like in unison, and that just makes me feel like it's the entire might of the Empire, and I can just hear or see, and this is the one I was referring to at the beginning, where like I get a picture in my head that is not Star Wars. I get a picture in my head of just like the massive, Imperial army standing there, and it's almost like when Anakin marches up the steps of the Jedi Temple, and the clone troopers are behind him. It's kind of that picture, but stormtroopers and Darth Vader. And I just think it's first of all, it's a powerful song, but when you get into it, it becomes more of a beautifully powerful song. And so the Imperial March, for so many reasons, it's in my top 5, but it lands at number 3.
Oh, yeah, that'll probably come up later. Number two for me is from the original Star Wars, A New Hope. It is titled Ben's Death and TIE Fighter Attack. This is at the beginning, of course, is self-explanatory, that, the shock, the sadness, which quickly translates into bum, ba, 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 and they're blasting the TIE fighters out of the sky. Yeah. This music comes back in The Last Jedi when Chewie and Rey show up and go through the caves,
right,
flying, and it also shows up in the Solo film when Alden Ehrenreich Solo is doing something heroic as well. It's probably one of the more iconic pieces of Star Wars music as well. But it's very, very sweeping and fun, and it just kind of, whenever that song is on, your heroes are safe, and they're doing something very heroic and very exciting in a perilous situation. But because it's Star Wars, and because this is originally made for kids, you feel like they're going to be okay, and it's very exciting, and it's just a great track. That's all I got.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great song. That was just on the cutting floor. The cutting. What's the expression? The
cutting room
cutting
floor.
Yeah, you're right.
Cutting room floor.
That's for film. That's for film, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But still, but Star Wars is a film.
It's violent.
That's the sheet music that I set aside.
Yes.
Yes, I do like that done. Yeah, and I forgot. I knew it, but I'd forgotten before you just said that theme goes across several different films.
Mm-hmm. A lot of these do. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, a lot of them do.
Number 2 for me, I'm playing catch up again. The asteroid field from Empire Strikes Back. Again, this is, I always feel like this is such a complicated piece of music because there's so much going on. There's the asteroids, there's the hyperdrive, there's them flying through, trying to maneuver. There's TIE fighters coming after him. And it's kind of flipping back and forth, right? So we see different perspectives and what's happening. And I like the it's like in a minute and 15 seconds in, I wrote that down. There's the kind of that fast paced dun 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 dun. That quick motion of like, oh my gosh, we've definitely hit this. This is anxiety to its finest. And it's again, the Falcon is swooping in and out of danger. The tide's advancing in on them. Again, it's just like it's just as nerve wracking as Han Solo choosing to go into the asteroid field. So again, I like this one too because you can pick it up, and I think if you play it for other people, they kind of get the rhythm and they gonna they see some more of the themes. But it's not one necessarily that's you can pick up right away. I think as a casual fan, but I like listening to it. This is one I agree with you, Dan, that I can just put on and listen, and not like I have to watch the movie. But yeah, it's a great piece, and I like it. Number 2 spot. There you go.
Love it.
Very cool. Yep. All right, my number 2. These I still sit here and I look at this and I'm like, how did these two knock out Imperial March? But it's very clear when I start looking at it and I start listening to it. And so my number 2 is from the Return of the Jedi, and it also, Dan, has that bum 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 dum, and that is, and I didn't realize, not having this album, I didn't realize that this passage is broken up into 3 different parts. And this one is in particular Battle of Endor Part 3 medley. This scene in the movies, in that final part where the Falcon finally flies into the tunnels of the second Death Star, and they're flying, and he loses the antenna, and he loses, and just the shot from spot to spot to spot, from battle to Endor to Darth Star back to the battle, so much going on there. So one of my top most exciting moments is, I'm not surprised that the song pops up here in this. And so, from the racing low tones to the fanfares, there's several call and response where the main instrument, the brass, calls out something, and then the woodwinds or the strings will repeat it right away. That adds to that like triumphantness, but also tension. But then what really sold me on this song was this particular piece also holds Vader's final moments. And it really pulls back, and you get some really tender moments, and you can just really see where Imperial March, I have my own picture in my head what that looks like. This is one where I very vividly see scenes of the movie. Vader laying on the ramp to the shuttle, and take my helmet off, Luke, and all of that. Not a direct quote, by the way. It's
take my helmet off.
It really seems to like stop the moment, and you think that you think that song's going to finish, but then it pops right back in for a rebel victory, and just and then I believe the very next thing is the celebratory music on Endor, and so this just this is my Goosebumps song, because of the way it ends. And I remember thinking as a kid, this is my last like moment of seeing Star Wars, X-Wing, Death Star. This is it. There's no more. They've destroyed the second Death Star. You've killed Darth Vader, or they've saved, redeemed Darth Vader, and this is going to be it. And so it just, I don't know. There's something about that song and everything that goes into that just sort of wraps up Star Wars for me. So Battle of Endor Part 3, or Movement 3, or Portion 3, or whatever. Three portions.
That's wonderful. I think that's a great choice. Plus, you've got a nice mix of a lot of the iconic elements.
Yeah, I like that part. So I guess we are down to number 1.
Ooh. I think I've got the ultimate story.
Oh boy!
So this song is very, very special to me, and will always be very, very special to me. I always liked it. I liked what it means in the film. I like the moment, and how every time I watch it from when I was a kid up to now, that's the sweeping celebratory nature of it is wonderful. But the reason it's so special to me is in 2010, I started the school year having a particularly rough summer. I was in my late 30s, and I thought, I'm never going to find my spouse. I mean, what is taking so long? What's wrong? I'm smart. I'm handsome. Come on, what's the deal?
That's right.
So I walk into school that first day, and the first person I see is Deanna Zehr. Well, Deanna Johnson at the time. And I looked at her and I thought, wow, she's beautiful. I hope she's not a student teacher. Because, I wanted to date someone that was in their 30s, obviously. But she's just very young and beautiful. So we hit it off right away. I asked her out fairly quickly. Suddenly we're wedding planning, right? And one of the things that's the hardest is picking the music for the wedding. And we went over to someone's house, one of the church pianists, and they were playing all these different music and all these wedding things and blah blah blah. And we didn't want to do that kind of stereotypical stuff. And on a whim, I just picked up my phone and I selected this particular song, and I said, "Hey, what do you two think of this? The Throne Room and In Title." And I played it for about 30 seconds. And they both looked at me, and I said, "Isn't that beautiful?" And Deanna looked at me, and she goes, "Is that Star Wars?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Let's do it." And I thought, dude, I get my bride, my soulmate, and she wants to hear a Star Wars song at the wedding. So I was so excited. So the day of the blessed event comes. And, you may kiss the bride, and everyone's so excited. It's the most wonderful experience. And I don't know if you remember this, Cory, or not. This is before I knew Tom, so otherwise Tom would have been there for sure. And we turn, and they play this music. And everyone in that church starts laughing and clapping and smiling because I think, and I didn't interview them all because I was too busy being married, I think they were all laughing because I thought, she must really love him to play this. And we're walking down, and I've got my bride. It took me so long to meet her and for everything to fall into place, and thank the good Lord that it did. And I'm listening to this wonderful triumphant song where Luke conquers. He leaves obscurity on Tatooine, leaves being a farm boy to be something greater than he ever realized he could be. He found his destiny. He defeated his ultimate conquest, the Death Star. I defeated my ultimate conquest, bachelorhood, and found my soulmate to take my first step into a larger world at the church where I grew up. And then later, Deanna gave me that sheet music superimposed with our picture of us walking down the aisle together, and it's adorned in my office. And that song is always very, very special to me. That's my number one. Cool. It will always be my number one.
Awesome.
It's funny, Dan, because thinking through that pick for me, number 4 was the Throne Room, and I thought, I have heard this at a wedding somewhere. I swear I have. And for some reason, I was talking through this, and I made that description of, like, this would be great to walk out to, because I was like, who was that? And I was like, it was you. And for some reason, I in my mind, I mixed it up with the Superman theme, which I think you also used.
We used that at the reception. When they announced at the reception, we came out. Yep.
Okay. Which is also, yes. Okay. So I just got those mixed up. That's just getting older. But I knew it. I knew it. It's
a great story, right?
That's great. You can't. I mean, that's the thing too. Is like these. Not only have these musical accompaniments or these tracks, these scores played out for us during a movie, but they've invested in our lives. I think that's the I don't say the miracle, but the gloriousness of this music. It is invested in our lives as much as the films are too. So I think that's fantastic and so cool. My number one pick. This is among the most iconic music tracks of all time. And it's funny because it didn't sit my number one for a while, and it kind of kept rising. And I literally cut my number one, and it made the honorable mentions. And I was like, this is crazy. This is how these lists go. My number one is the Imperial March from Empire Strikes Back. And I don't know why I picked this over, which my honorable mention is just the Star Wars theme. But I don't know why. It just, to me, it is so Star Wars. It's almost more Star Wars than the Star Wars theme, which is ridiculous to say. I mean, I'm sure there's an argument there, of course. But it's in its own. You hear it every time. You know, like you said, you know the power behind it, and there's so much of Star Wars in it when you hear that. And reasons for, I guess, my own thought was I'm cutting the Star Wars theme because I feel like that's almost too much Star Wars, which is crazy to think. I don't know how to put that into words.
No, I know what you mean.
Everyone. I mean, the Star Wars theme is. It's just. It's just you can't. I don't know how to say it but to make that, I don't know how to make that connection. But Imperial March to me is just a superior song, which Ask Me Tomorrow could change, but it is. You can say you can play it over another completely different movie and still get that goosebumps feeling with the Imperial March, and it's crazy how much of this music is ingrained into our lives, and from the original trilogy. It's so iconic, and again makes great memories, like you proved, Dan. So number one, there you go.
Very good. Very good. Now, I'm going to say I cheated. But, Cory, don't worry. I don't have a tie. There is no tie.
Okay.
The cheating comes in this. I've made a big deal about how Imperial March dropped to number 3. Well, I just want you to know that my number 1 starts with the Imperial March. But hey, we've got a winner here. We got a trifecta. This song has been chosen by all 3 of us, and that is the Asteroid Field is my number 1.
Cool.
It starts with the and I was like, Asteroid Field is going to be in my top 5. It has to be. It absolutely positively has to be. And because I can close my eyes and I can almost see the moment for moment every single thing happening during the movie during that, I was like, it's got to move up to 1. It's got to. And what so it was, it opens with the Imperial March. When you drop that needle, that's plays first. So, when I listen to this song, just like you both have said, I feel like I have to dodge imaginary rocks when I'm listening to this. The rise and fall of the strings and the brass shouting in my face like 3PO stating the odds. There's a moment when Solo's looking for a place to land, and he says something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Chewie, fly closer to the big one. And 3P goes, closer? I love that moment. But then they get there, and you've got this picture, and you know what I'm about to say. The Falcon does a loop-de-loop. And when it does the loop-de-loop, it goes, and then it goes right down into the tunnel. Dude, that is probably the best, most vivid image in my head of a Star Wars song to film as any of them are. When I hear that, I can see nothing other than the Millennium Falcon doing that loop-de-loop into the tunnel. That song, I love it for all the reasons that both of you said it. And hey, it's got to be someone's number 1 because it's on all 3 of our lists.
That's right.
All right.
Isn't that cool?
I'm surprised that nobody picked the Star Wars theme. Really, none of us did.
Well,
I didn't make the list.
Well, I thought of this, and mine is the Throne Room and end title. The end title is the Star Wars theme.
It does. Yeah, it does have.
Yep. It's very much
fair. The Star Wars theme, it starts every single movie. So it's iconic in its own right. Like you said, it does come and flow in all the films. Through all the Skywalker. Well, probably all Star Wars films.
Not Solo or Rogue One, of course. All the Skywalker films.
All the 9. Yeah, the 9.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about our honorable mentions because I feel like I need to explain myself because I don't have the Imperial March on my list, obviously.
Well,
So-
But
again,
I mean, I've got
interesting
clips
that-
of it in like Lando's theme in the asteroid field. But
Yep.
for me, like you said, the Imperial March has been like, it's almost more Star Warsy than Star Wars because it's everywhere. You know, my son has a bottle opener that I had from an old collection thingy. That every time you like open up the glass Coca-Cola, it plays the Imperial March. I mean, I'm not tired of that song, but that song's joy is sort of long since swept over me because I've heard it so many times.
Yep.
That being said, when I hear it in the 501st walks out, I get a big thrill out of it.
Exactly.
When I first see the Star Destroyer, Executor showing up in The Empire Strikes Back, and I know I'm going to see Vader, it's magical. But I think that's the reason. I did put it on my honorable mention, but I didn't make it my top 5.
So Cory, what are your honorable mentions?
I
I'm
do
sorry. Wait,
I
I can't mess up the order now.
Yeah,
Dan, you.
I got a couple
Go ahead.
more. I mean, I hope that doesn't sound bad, but does that make sense? I mean, I love it, but it's
total sense.
Yeah.
So I have hyperspace, also from The Empire Strikes Back. This is at the end when Leia goes back and gets Luke off that weather vane. But dun 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 dun.
Yes.
I love that thing. I put the Imperial March and then the Imperial attack that you mentioned from the beginning of A New Hope. It's like a slower version of the epic hero quest. So those are my 3 honorable mentions.
Yeah, I had the Star Wars theme. I had Princess Leia's theme, which, again, I'm surprised that didn't make any of our lists as well. And then Imperial Attack was on my list.
Is that right?
It's again, it's so hard because it's like, do you want to pick the main theme where you would see the most of that theme, or do you want to see one that kind of like leads off into it? Because there's so many moments, like you said, it brings it all together. And like you said earlier, we mentioned earlier that like this whole film series, or even just the original trilogy, John Williams does a great job of flowing those into the moments of the film itself. Like the whole thing. Like I said, I'm not one to put it on and just go, I'm listening to A New Hope today. Like, it just doesn't happen. But I'm also listening to whenever I watch Star Wars A New Hope. Like, I feel like I'm watching the movie, but I'm also listening to the soundtrack as well. So, and not to your point, Dan, like, I've heard this music so much. I don't want to say it's become numb, but it kind of has in a sense of, you know, I enjoy it, but I don't want to, you know, bathe in it, if that makes sense. So I think there's a healthy balance to that, some degree. But if I feel in the mood to listen to something Star Warsy, I'll put it on, you know, and I'll pull out the ones I want to listen to. And most recently, you know, the Mandalorian soundtrack has been fantastic. Again, it's Star Wars at its essence, and it's John Williams doing such greatness. I was thinking about this as well as we were walking through, like, what if John Williams was not the composer? Like, would that be as good a film? Like, would someone else come along and still have the gravity? But I don't think so. I think John Williams, his score and him setting to it, I mean, like you said, just the small loop-de-loop or the, you know, the little twinkles, you know, just a movement. He is so into the film as much as the director and the writers and the cast. So it just makes it all what it is today. So, wow, it's just fantastic. You
know, if there was an official track that said Han and Leia's theme, that would have been my number 2. It wouldn't replace the throne room scene. But Han and Leia's theme is probably my favorite theme of characters, of leitmotifs, because that's what you call the different themes. But there wasn't really a specific track on the original Empire score that said Han and Leia's love theme, even though it's clearly throughout the film. But I think it's beautiful. And it was also a major song in the Force Awakens trailer. What's that? Yeah, Han the Princess, but that's more around when he gets frozen in carbonite.
Oh, yeah.
Which that music probably evokes the most emotion from me. I just listened to it before we recorded. That song evokes the most emotion from me, but it makes me super sad still that Han Solo gets frozen in carbonite, so I didn't put that because I didn't want to be sad.
You know, that's funny because I didn't put the Magic Tree from
Oh, yeah.
Empire where Luke goes out, because it scares me. I remember watching
yeah.
it and I felt scared. And I just don't. I don't mind listening, but it's just I don't want that feeling, right?
Yep,
Because
exactly.
it evoke a lot of goosebump moments, and I don't. It might be great for somebody else, but to me, it's just. I think he also does too good a job to invoke a lot of emotion in those scenes.
Right.
So I have two honorable mentions. One from the first one is from A New Hope, and the title of it is The Desert and Robot Auction.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
I like that because he really did a great job of like giving us a sense of how hot the sands of Tatooine are, and the opening of that with the repeating notes, do 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 do, and then the real high pitches that make you feel that like feeling faint. But then you get into probably, in my eyes, one of the most famous oboe solos of ever. I love that. I love that. It plays a little bit of a light mood to it, kind of gives you a sense of like what the droids are like or what we should expect from the droids. And they even mute the trumpets in there to give it sort of that, what I always think is sort of it can be played as like a comical sort of sound. And then a little bit of the theme at the end of the song to kind of tie in the heroism that, here's Luke Skywalker, evaporator, farm boy. But we get a feel of that theme song there. So that's my number one. My second honorable mention is the Star Wars main title. I could not fit it into my top five, but it wouldn't set right in my heart if I didn't put it somewhere in this. Although I suspect, and this goes to, thanking everybody for joining us for this top five. This, as Dan said at the opening, this cruel top five that we've had to, pull out. But what I'm curious is, send us some feedback. Do you want us to do the other trilogies? Because we've kicked around. Do we do prequel trilogy, sequel trilogy? What do you want to hear? Because I'm going to bet that the main title will show up in someone's top five if we were to do and finish out the whole Skywalker saga. So give us some feedback. Let us know. Last week we spent the whole time talking about your feedback, and we love getting your emails and your messages. And just keep that up. It really. It helps make this even more fun because it becomes part of our conversation. It's not just the three of us, which it's always gold when we get to talk and I get to hang with Ann and Cory. But what makes it complete, what brings the circle and closes it up, is your feedback and the things that you have to say. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight for our top 5 Star Wars songs of the OT, the original trilogy, and we will catch you next week. So long, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.